The glitz and glamour of Hollywood often masks the harsh reality that celebrities, despite their fame and fortune, are just as vulnerable to life's cruel twists of fate as the rest of us. Throughout the decades, we've witnessed countless stars whose lives were cut devastatingly short in car accidents that shocked the world and left millions of fans mourning. From rising teen heartthrobs to established A-listers at the peak of their careers, these tragic incidents serve as sobering reminders that money and fame cannot protect anyone from the ultimate equalizer: mortality. 1. James Dean, the rebel without a cause, who became a cause himself. Perhaps no celebrity car crash has achieved more legendary status than James Dean's fatal accident on September 30th, 1955. The 24-year-old actor, who had completed just 3 major films, was driving his brand new Porsche 550 Spyder, nicknamed Little Bastard, to a racing event in Salinas, California, when tragedy struck. Dean's story has all the elements of a Hollywood tragedy: youth, talent, speed, and fate. He had just wrapped filming on Giant and was at the cusp of superstardom when he collided with a Ford Tudor driven by 23-year-old Cal Poly student Donald Turnipseed at the intersection of routes 466 and 41 near Calame, California. What makes Dean's death particularly haunting is the eerie premonition surrounding it. Actor Alec Guinness had reportedly warned Dean about the car just days before, telling him, "If you get in that car, you will be found dead in it by this time next week." The Porsche itself seemed cursed. After the crash, it was sold for parts, and several subsequent owners died in accidents involving those parts. Dean's death didn't just end a promising career, it created a cultural phenomenon. He became the ultimate symbol of young rebellion and tragic beauty, with his image immortalized in countless posters, films, and songs. His death at such a young age, combined with his intense on-screen presence, elevated him from rising star to eternal icon. 2. Princess Diana, the people's princess who became a global martyr. On August 31st, 1997, the world stopped when news broke that Diana, Princess of Wales, had died in a car crash in the Pont de l'Alma tunnel in Paris. The accident, which also killed her companion Dodi Fayed and driver Henri Paul, sent shockwaves around the globe and sparked one of the most intense periods of public mourning in modern history. Diana wasn't technically a Hollywood celebrity, but her cultural impact rivaled any American star. Her death at age 36 was particularly tragic because she had finally found happiness after her tumultuous divorce from Prince Charles and was beginning a new chapter in her life with Fayed. The circumstances surrounding the crash became the subject of intense scrutiny and conspiracy theories that persist to this day. The paparazzi's relentless pursuit of Diana's car that night raised serious questions about press ethics and the price of fame. The fact that she might have survived if she had been wearing a seatbelt added another layer of tragedy to an already devastating loss. Diana's funeral drew an estimated 2.5 billion viewers worldwide, making it one of the most watched events in television history. Her death fundamentally changed how the public viewed the relationship between celebrities and the media, leading to stricter regulations on paparazzi behavior in many countries. 3. Paul Walker, Fast and Furious star's ironically tragic end. The death of Paul Walker on November 30th, 2013, was particularly shocking because of the cruel irony involved. The 40-year-old star of the Fast and Furious franchise, known for his love of cars and racing, died as a passenger in a high-speed crash in Valencia, California. Walker and his friend Roger Rodas were leaving a charity event for Walker's disaster relief organization when their Porsche Carrera GT crashed into a tree and burst into flames. The car was traveling at speeds estimated between 80 to 93 miles per hour in a 45 miles per hour zone when Rodas lost control. What made Walker's death so heartbreaking was that he was in the middle of filming Furious 7 at the time. The production had to be shut down and completely reimagined, with Walker's brothers serving as body doubles to help complete his scenes. The film's emotional tribute to Walker, featuring the song See You Again by Wiz Khalifa and Charlie Puth, became one of the most moving celebrity farewells in cinema history. Walker's death also highlighted his lesser-known humanitarian work. He had founded Reach Out Worldwide RAW to provide disaster relief, and he was actually coming from a RAW fundraising event when the accident occurred. His legacy extends far beyond the movie screen to the lives he touched through his charitable work. 4. Ryan Dunn, Jackass star's reckless final stunt. Ryan Dunn, best known as one of the stars of MTV's Jackass, died on June 20th, 2011, in a car crash that seemed to embody the reckless spirit that made him famous. The 34-year-old was driving his Porsche 911 GT3 at extremely high speeds when he crashed and burned on Route 322 in Pennsylvania. Dunn's death was particularly controversial because he had been drinking heavily before getting behind the wheel. His blood alcohol level was more than twice the legal limit, and toxicology reports also showed marijuana in his system. The crash also killed his passenger, production assistant Zachary Hartwell. The accident sparked a public debate about drunk driving and celebrity responsibility. Fellow Jackass star Steve-O used Dunn's death as a wake-up call to get sober, while others in the entertainment industry spoke out about the dangers of mixing alcohol and driving. What made Dunn's death even more tragic was that it occurred just hours after he had posted a photo on Twitter showing himself drinking with friends. The image became a haunting reminder of how quickly life can change and the permanent consequences of poor decisions. 5. Anton Yelchin, Star Trek actor's freak accident. The death of Anton Yelchin on June 19, 2016, was perhaps one of the most bizarre and preventable celebrity car deaths in recent memory. The 27-year-old Star Trek actor was killed when his own SUV rolled backward down his driveway and crushed him against a brick pillar and security fence at his Los Angeles home. Yelchin had been getting out of his 2015 Jeep Grand Cherokee to open his gate when the vehicle, which he believed was in park, rolled backward. The incident was particularly tragic because it was caused by a known defect in the car's electronic shift system that had already prompted recalls. The young actor's death highlighted the sometimes deadly consequences of automotive design flaws. His parents later sued Fiat Chrysler, arguing that the confusing gear shifter led to their son's death. The case brought attention to the hundreds of similar incidents involving the same vehicle model. Yelchin was at the height of his career when he died, having just completed filming Star Trek Beyond. His death was particularly felt in Hollywood because he was known as one of the most talented and humble young actors of his generation, with friends and colleagues describing him as passionate about his craft and genuinely kind to everyone he met. Success. Lisa Left Eye Lopes, TLC members' fatal trip to Honduras. Lisa Left Eye Lopes, the rapper from the iconic R&B group TLC, died in a car accident on April 25, 2002, while on a spiritual retreat in Honduras. The 30-year-old was driving a rented Mitsubishi Montero when she swerved to avoid a truck, lost control, and rolled the vehicle multiple times. Lopes' death was particularly shocking because TLC was preparing for a comeback after years of hiatus following their massive success in the 1990s. The group had been working on new material, and fans were eagerly anticipating their return to the music scene. What made Lopes' death even more eerie was that she had reportedly been experiencing strange premonitions about death in the weeks leading up to the accident. She had been filming a documentary about her spiritual journey in Honduras and had mentioned feeling like someone close to her was going to die. She just didn't realize it would be her. The accident also killed one other person and injured several others who were passengers in the vehicle. Lopes had been traveling with a group that included her sister and members of a girl group she was mentoring. The tragedy cut short not only her own promising solo career, but also the potential comeback of TLC, one of the best-selling girl groups of all time. 7. Grace Kelly, from Hollywood royalty to actual princess to tragic icon. The death of Grace Kelly on September 14, 1982, marked the end of one of Hollywood's most fairy tale careers. The former actress, who had become Princess Grace of Monaco after marrying Prince Rainier III, died at age 52 when her car plunged down a mountainside on the winding roads of the French Riviera. Kelly had been driving her Rover 3500 with her daughter Princess Stephanie when she apparently suffered a stroke, causing her to lose control of the vehicle. The car tumbled 120 feet down the hillside before coming to rest. While Stephanie survived with minor injuries, Kelly was pronounced dead the following day from her injuries. The accident was particularly tragic because it occurred on the same treacherous roads where Kelly had filmed scenes for Alfred Hitchcock's To Catch a Thief nearly 3 decades earlier. The irony wasn't lost on fans who remembered her glamorous on-screen presence in that very location. Kelly's death marked the end of an era. She had been one of Hollywood's most celebrated actresses in the 1950s, starring in classics like High Noon, Dial M for Murder, and Rear Window, before giving up her career to marry Prince Rainier in what was dubbed the wedding of the century. In 1956, 8. Jayne Mansfield, the blonde bombshell's devastating end. Jayne Mansfield's death on June 29, 1967, became one of the most gruesome and talked about celebrity car crashes in Hollywood history. The 34-year-old actress and sex symbol was killed instantly when her Buick Electra slammed into the back of a semi-trailer truck on U.S. Route 90 near Slidell, Louisiana. Mansfield was traveling with her lawyer boyfriend Sam Brody and driver Ronnie Harrison, both of whom also died in the crash. Her 3 children, including future actress Mariska Hargitay, were sleeping in the back seat and miraculously survived with minor injuries. The accident was particularly shocking because of its violent nature. The top of Mansfield's car was completely sheared off by the trailer, leading to persistent urban legends about her decapitation, though this was later proven false by the coroner. The crash was so severe that it led to the development of the Mansfield bar, a safety device required on the back of large trucks to prevent cars from sliding underneath. Mansfield's death marked the end of a career that had made her one of the most recognizable faces of the 1950s and early 1960s. While she was often dismissed as merely a blonde bombshell, she was actually quite intelligent and had an IQ of 163. Her death robbed Hollywood of a complex performer who was just beginning to be taken seriously as an actress. 9. Eddie Cochran, rock and roll. Pioneer's final tour. Eddie Cochran, the rock and roll legend behind hits like Summertime Blues and Come On Everybody, died at age 21 in a car crash during what would be his final tour. On April 17, 1960, Cochran was traveling from a concert in Bristol, England, to London's Heathrow Airport when the taxi he was riding in blew a tire and crashed. The accident also injured fellow rocker Gene Vincent and killed the taxi driver. Cochran was rushed to the hospital but died from his injuries, becoming one of rock and roll's earliest casualties. His death came just months after Buddy Holly, Ritchie Valens, and J.P., the Big Bopper. Richardson had died in a plane crash, leading to what Don McLean would later call the day the music died. Cochran's death was particularly tragic because he had been planning to return to the United States to marry his fiancée and had expressed concerns about the demanding tour schedule. He had been one of the most influential early rock and roll artists, and his guitar work and rebellious attitude had inspired countless musicians who would come after him. The loss of Cochran at such a young age robbed the music world of one of its most innovative talents. He had been experimenting with multi-track recording and electronic effects years before they became common, and his influence can be heard in everyone, from the Beatles to The Who, to countless punk and rockabilly bands. 10. Duane Allman, slide guitar virtuoso's motorcycle tragedy. While technically a motorcycle accident rather than a car crash, Duane Allman's death on October 29, 1971, deserves mention for its impact on American music. The 24-year-old Allman Brothers bandleader was riding his Harley-Davidson Sportster in Macon, Georgia, when he collided with a flatbed truck, dying from his injuries. Allman's death came at the peak of his influence on American music. He had not only founded the Allman Brothers Band, but had also been a key session musician, contributing his distinctive slide guitar to recordings by artists like Wilson Pickett, Aretha Franklin, and Derek and the Dominoes. His work on Layla and other assorted love songs is considered some of the finest guitar playing ever recorded. The location of Allman's accident became almost mythical in rock lore. He crashed just a few blocks from where his bandmate Barry Oakley would die in a remarkably similar motorcycle accident just over a year later. Both musicians were traveling at high speed when they collided with vehicles, and both accidents occurred in the same general area of Macon. Allman's death didn't end the band, but it fundamentally changed their sound and dynamic. He had been the driving creative force behind their unique blend of blues, rock, country, and jazz. And while they continued to make music for decades after his death, many fans and critics argue they never quite recaptured the magic of those early. Now were years with Duane. 11. Harry Chapin. Folk singer's humanitarian heart stopped too soon. Harry Chapin, the singer-songwriter behind hits like Cats in the Cradle and Taxi, died in a car accident on July 16, 1981, while driving to a benefit concert on the Long Island Expressway. The 38-year-old was rear-ended by a semi-truck, causing his car to burst into flames. Chapin's death was particularly tragic because he was on his way to perform at a free concert to benefit World Hunger Relief, a cause he had championed throughout his career. He had been one of the founders of Why Hunger, originally World Hunger Year, and had performed hundreds of benefit concerts to raise awareness and funds for the organization. The circumstances of the accident remain somewhat mysterious. Chapin's car had been traveling slowly in the left lane when it was struck from behind. Some witnesses suggested he might have been having car trouble, while others speculated he may have suffered a heart attack before the collision. An autopsy revealed he had some heart abnormalities, but it was never definitively determined whether they contributed to the accident. Chapin's death robbed the world of not just a talented musician, but also one of entertainment's most dedicated humanitarian activists. He had pledged to perform one concert for charity for every paid concert he did, and he was actively working on legislation to combat world hunger at the time of his death. His legacy lives on through the Harry Chapin Foundation, which continues his work fighting hunger and poverty. 12. Marc Bolan, T-Rex frontman's glam rock swan song. Marc Bolan, the flamboyant frontman of T-Rex and one of the pioneers of glam rock, died in a car crash on September 16, 1977, just 2 weeks before his 30th birthday. Bolan was a passenger in a Mini 1200 Source 75 GT driven by his girlfriend Gloria Jones when the car left the road and crashed into a tree on Barnes Common in London. The accident occurred in the early morning hours as the couple was returning home from a night out. Jones, who survived the crash with serious injuries, lost control of the vehicle while driving around a bend. The car struck a fence post and then a large sycamore tree, killing Bolan instantly. Bolan's death was particularly shocking because T-Rex had been experiencing something of a comeback. After dominating the charts in the early 1970s with hits like Bang a Gong, Get It On, and 20th Century Boy, the band's popularity had waned, but they were beginning to regain momentum with a new punk-influenced sound that seemed perfectly timed for the late 1970s music scene. The tree that killed Bolan became a shrine for fans, who would leave flowers, records, and other tributes. The site remained a pilgrimage destination for decades until the tree was finally removed in 2007. Bolan's influence on rock music, particularly glam and punk, cannot be overstated. He inspired everyone from David Bowie to the Ramones to countless indie bands. 13. Cliff Burton, Metallica's bass legend's Swedish tragedy. Cliff Burton, the bass guitarist for Metallica, died in a bus crash on September 27, 1986, while the band was touring in Sweden. The 24-year-old musician was sleeping in his bunk when the tour bus skidded on ice and overturned, crushing him underneath the vehicle. Burton's death was particularly devastating for the metal community because he was widely regarded as one of the most innovative bass players in heavy music. His classical training and experimental approach had helped elevate Metallica from just another thrash metal band to something truly special. His bass solos were legendary, and songs like For Whom the Bell Tolls and Orion showcased his incredible range and creativity. The circumstances of the crash were tragic and somewhat controversial. The band members had drawn cards to determine who would get which bunk on the bus, and Burton had won the right to sleep in Kirk Hammett's bunk, which happened to be the one that was crushed when the bus overturned. Some band members later expressed guilt about the random nature of the selection process. Burton's death forced Metallica to confront their mortality at a young age and profoundly influenced their subsequent music. While they continued to achieve massive success, many fans argue that they never quite recaptured the progressive, experimental edge that Burton had brought to their sound. His influence on bass playing in metal music continues to this day, with countless musicians citing him as a primary inspiration.